Today, what's very important is to be able to influence consumer behaviors and get them to do new things, right? And the difficulty is that as an industry, we're not always very successful when you see what comes out of the marketing process as a whole. For example, this is just an example, and I got this slide for almost any other category of what we ended up doing in comms, and these are all different brands, right? And the issue with that is that pretty much probably the core issue behind that results and this sea of sameness in some sense is the fact that probably you had the same types of creative brains in the room when those campaigns were conceived, and in the end you end up with kind of the same result. So it's probably a lack of diversity and originality in the inception of coming up with these campaigns, and that also happens into innovation. So our belief at IIeX is very much that you need to bring a fresh pair of eyes on business topics, might be for innovation or communications. You need to bring crazy people into the room. And if you think about people who've been really disrupting industries lately, people like Richard Branson, for example. Richard Branson is not an airline expert. He's someone who just had the experience of flying and was not satisfied with the experience he was getting across the Atlantic, and actually he started from the experience he wanted to get, and from there he built a very successful airline based on these new ideas he could bring. And actually you also leverage professionals from the airlines industry to actually come up with Virgin Airlines. So the belief is very much that, yeah, let's bring new people into the equation. The way we do that at IIeX is using crowdsourcing. I'll talk about it, and it's through a creative community that sits on the platform, IIeX.com, where you have almost 400,000 creative people that will be designers, copywriters, some people can do video, product designers, design thinking experts. They are mostly millennials, so there's these traits of forward-looking consumers that actually give you insight into where consumption patterns and behaviors are going. And that will be people who could be a creative dentist, or could be that could be a professional designer or art directors that working in an agency and tired to working on the same brands all the time. Very global community, 164 countries. What we do, and the reason they come to our platform, is really to collaborate with brands like P&G on interesting challenges. So what we do is that we take a strategically formatted question and we turn that into a stimulus, a brief that anyone could understand. So to be able to work on that brief, you're not supposed to know the brand. We educate you about the brand. You're not supposed to know about the target audience. We'll give you an understanding of a persona you have to solve the challenge to. And we run that as a competition that there'll be a few thousands of dollars attached to a few winners. Typically 3 winners will win something out of a competition, and we put the brief on our platform. And over the course of 10 days, we'll get around 500 people who will go into the brief and read it into details. Obviously, they'll accept the terms and conditions by which their intellectual property will be transferred to the client. And depending on the time they have, whether they think they're a good idea, whether they actually feel they're able to crack the challenge, we'll get around 100 solutions. And I'll show you examples, but these are pretty much product designs or experience designs or communication prototypes in some way, which we then gather, curate, and in the end, the best ones get transferred to the brand and the IP gets transferred. The reason why these people are participating, so imagine you have 100 people who actually do something and only 3 of these people will win prize money. Actually, the core motivation is very much that these people are very creative and they don't have the opportunity on a daily basis to express that muscle. So they come to the platform to find great briefs, to have fun. They have a lot of fun creating. And when they win, it's very much about validation. I won a competition, so now I feel I'm competent, and actually the money is just the cherry on the cake of rewarding the effort you've put into creating that great concept. Amazingly, and that very disruptive for this group or for us as researchers is very much that great ideas really come from anywhere. So sometimes we have clients telling us, oh, we only want ideas for China because it's a project for China. And actually the best ideas, routinely 92% of times, will come from a different market. Because if you've done a good job of explaining the consumer issue or tension you're trying to solve for and the context of that challenge, but actually insights can be pretty universal pretty often, and actually someone in another market will have collided on something that maybe people in China have not, and will be a novel solution to crack the challenge. So that's our routine is very much to see those ideas flowing. What we found is being the perfect, I will say, integration of that crowdsourcing approach is very much that first you need to have a very strong brief, rooted in deep consumer insights and with a real tension into a brief. Then you do that process of ideation through the crowd. And then what's very important is that you shouldn't expect the perfect solution coming by magic from the crowd. Actually, these are nuggets, these are pointers, these are starters of solutions that actually, if you bring those solutions into a creative workshop with your teams, with R&D, CMK, marketing people, then you can elevate those ideas to concepts that will be much stronger. And when you evaluate those concepts, you find out that they work much better. And actually, the average performance increase is 20 to 40% better than the regular ideas that you get from a workshop. So to give you an example of how it plays in motion into innovation. This is a brief we received from P&G 5 years ago and the question was very much, we have all these fantastic chips and the features we can put in the connected toothbrush of the future. The only issue is that how can we make it relevant to people? How do we create those solutions that actually will make people's life better? So we submitted that unbranded challenge. No one could tell it was P&G by then. So confidentiality was protected. We got 67 ideas. So these are examples of ideas. Like the top right one comes from China, and it's Guitar Hero for a toothbrush. If you play your teeth like this, the music goes crazy. If you stay like this, it doesn't play. It's gamification, right? And it's a nugget that then has been integrated in the apps. You have another move of gamification. Here you have the speaking toothbrush that coaches you on how to improve your toothbrushing. And when P&G was able to have the sensors of the 3D sensors of which teeth actually you've been brushing or not, then they could implement that feature. And so all of that has been influencing the roadmap for 2014 to 2017 of innovation, populated with those ideas and those trends that emerge, starting with this connected toothbrush. So in a nutshell, what this process and this community brings is very much the freshness of a new pair of eyes I would say, in a programmatic way. That's something we can replicate across the world and across brands. It's very fast, and in the end, what really brands get is the efficacy, the effectiveness of the concepts are much better. So down the road, you get much better outcomes. And now Cyan is going to share with us some examples of recent projects, one with IIeX on visualization of benefits.
Thank you. Okay, perfect. So the insight that we found was that in the 1985, consumers were like selecting which feminine product they were going to use. And that by the time we only had like 2 options for them to choose from, they were like looking like that picture, thin and slim. And now, a lot of like ladies have gained some weight. And we have like now 5 different options of pads that they can choose from. And we really identified that consumers that were not wearing the right size pad to get like the best results. They were like stuck with the thing that they made the decision several years ago, and it's no longer working. So with this, we were like able to identify some things, like 60% of women wear the wrong size pad, but 100% can change that. And we really wanted to have like a call to action and how we were able to communicate this by recommending the right product, getting some information with them and making some suggestions. So we showed like how the product would look on mannequins in the front and in the back, the different size options that we had for day, for night, for light flow, for heavy flow. But when they were like seeing these things, this is like a very engineered way of trying to show that we need to drive you need to have the right coverage. So we engaged with IIeX and we created like a good challenge with a brief. They were able to master and change it and adapt it to the audience of this 400,000 people in the crowd that they have access to. So it was like very relevant because we got like 126 entries from 35 different countries. It was just like 2 weeks, and you're going to see the type of output that we got. How I describe like the information that we're getting, it's like we're getting the semiotics of the category. What are like the symbols that consumers use? So you see the umbrella here, and the umbrella is like the coverage, like water preventing you from getting wet. So that was like a very relevant for us, but it was not that intuitive on how can we communicate that like a call to action to use something different. The other symbol was shoes. It's like if you are not wearing the right shoes, you feel uncomfortable. It's a very personal thing. You really need to find the right size. And if you are wearing the right shoe, it gives you the confidence and physical and emotionally of feeling good. And then we were able to find this other symbol, that it's clothing. We learned very quickly that if we ask a woman, what's your weight? It's not a very polite thing to ask. So a lot of our suggestions initially were like rounded behind the body mass index. So we asked like for their height and their weight, and they were like extremely disappointed with that and offended. But with this, opened the door for us to really identify what's like the size of the panty that you're like wearing, or the size of the dress that you're wearing. So I love like some of like the visuals of like if the small underwear, small bra, or like the underwear, this of like jumping and the shade of being like the shape of the pad. That opened a lot of possibilities for us to create like what you're seeing in the market. We launched this 1 year ago. So with all this, we changed the brand architecture. It was no longer about like how absorbent this was. We changed it like from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, my fit, trying to find like the best product that fits you. If it fits better, it's going to protect you better. Also, we were inspired with like the pantyhose graph of like having what's like the panty size that you wear, what's like the amount of flow that you have, and they can quickly spot which is like the right product for them. So all these images, by the way, with like the way that IIeX works, we had like the rights to use several of these images, and we didn't ended up using some of them, but
Periods are one thing
it was
they
like
all
the
have in
inspiration for
common.
this copy. So can you play the
Weeks
copy?
shouldn't be. So why are 60% of us wearing a pad that's too small? With Always My Fit's range of sizes, you don't have to. Just try the next size up and get up to 20% better coverage day or night. Because better coverage means better protection. Rewrite the rules. Always.
So I chose this example because it's like a very important way of like showing what we, once you have an insight, how you communicate it to the market, how you implement it, how you act on it, so it's impactful. It was like very important, but very, very quick turnaround of ideas, semiotics that inspired the marketing team to really change this. Another example is in Oral-B. So I talked like earlier about the jobs to be done. We did like some work on jobs to be done in Latin America, and we were really able to identify that we were not serving some consumers. These tweens, young adults that realize that they're no longer kids and they want to have like something better. So identify that struggling moment. We had like the 4 forces of change, which were like the pulls of the new solution, which were like the pushes that made them search for a different thing. They were realizing that they were starting to be closer to their friends, and they started like their first kiss. The consciousness of like how their freshness of their mouth was, and they realized that a kid bubble gum type of flavor was not like for them, and not like the adult mint powerful thing. So we were able to just like place the community. We got like 100 entries from 29 different countries in 5 days, and we got like great inspiration of some of like the visuals that try to show. I love like in particular like this visual of like they realize that they need to shave. The girls are starting to wear makeup, so they're no longer kids, they're not adults, but they're in this between phase that we can really delight them with a specific product. So all this drove the innovation in Latin America to identify specific flavors for this group, and we were able to launch. There's another visualization of what all the things that the freshness could give them and engage with others. That aspect of the measurement of how fresh they are, and the smile, the happy face in the mirror. So it was extremely powerful. So all this resulted in a new product, a new line extension that we launched in Latin America, and it's one of those first times. A lot of the times the flavors came designed from the US into Latin America. This was a geographically led innovation, all triggered by the power of the IIeX semiotics.
Science. So, and so just to conclude this session, I'm very glad with the partnership we're having for all these years, because P&G is this type of clients who actually can believe in your product and challenge you to make it better. And so Science has been challenging us about the speed and the types of things that we could get. And we went from 3 weeks now to more less than 10 days turnaround. We initially started with innovation. Now we're actually able to deliver across all the jobs to be done. Started with specific categories, and now we're collaborating with all the categories within P&G, and it's become very much an ongoing collaboration. So I'd just like to leave you with one message. And earlier on we talked about asking. I mean, this is another example of there are crowds out there. There are people who are willing to help your brands become great and find, in this example, great ideas. It's just a question of asking, and when you ask, you receive. Thank
Perfect.
you. And if you have questions, I don't know if you have time. One question?
Yep.
Yes, first question there.
How do you find and vet your 400,000 panelists? Or how do you evaluate their creativity and their ability to be part of that panel?
So the magic is that we don't have to evaluate them ex ante. Everyone is welcome. You can all register if you feel creative. We'll ask you, obviously, to register. We ask you whether you can do design or copywriting or what kind of creative skills you have. But you're welcome. And actually, I have clients who have won competitions in their weekends. And then what we do ex post, when you submit your ID, you'll rate your ID, and you move into some kind of leaderboard where you evaluate in which categories you're able to ideate, what kind of what skills you have. I mean, are you very good in packaging, ideation, for example, or comms? And then based on your success on the platform, do you actually end up being a winner appointed by one of the clients, you move onto that hierarchy. So that's a fully open entrance. And
what it's great is they do some curation before we share. They share we chart the 150 results that we get, but we are the ones that declare who's number 1, number 2, number 3, and if we want to grant other prizes. The beauty of this is that by granting these prizes, we are guaranteed to use the rights of those images, even if we do not use it everywhere. But that aspect of are they creative or not? At the very end, it doesn't matter, because we just get to pick all the stimuli. So it's a win-win, I think.
After, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.